You guys want to get some coffee or something?
Can I get a cup of coffee? Black? Can't you see we talking? White?
Even little kids in Mexico drink coffee.
Well, I'm not a little kid in Mexico, okay?
That is the best coffee I've ever tasted.
A damn fine cup of coffee.
You want a cup of coffee?
No coffee.
Coffee drinker, huh?
Maybe we could grab some coffee?
Coffee! Coffee, 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 coffee!
God damn, Jimmy. That's some serious gourmet shit. Me and Vincent would have been satisfied with some freeze-dried Taster's Choice, right? And he springs this serious gourmet shit on us.
Good morning. Today we are talking Alien. Just kidding, it's me. Here I am. Yes, we had such fun last week. I did, and the rest of the crew seemed to, and I hope you did too, talking about Aliens, James Cameron's best movie, according to me. But I thought, hey, let's talk about the rest of the franchise. As John Dustwolfen would say, there's only 2 Alien in the movie, but there's some other stuff, so we should probably address that too. But of course, there's the first movie. My name is Christopher Moonlight. Welcome to the show, and I want to bring in the rest of the panel so far. Of course, we have John Dustwolfen. Good morning.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
Precisely. And of course, the rock that we all crash our beachy waters against, Martin. And I don't know what that meant. Good morning.
Pricing.
And welcome to everybody in the chat so far. We have Cohen's Ghost, Josh Becker, Scribe Light, my neighbor on the moon. Good morning, Scribe. D. Bud Martin, Penny, Joe's Atmosphere, my honorary Oos, and Crumpus Jeevis. Thank you, come again. And Mr. Spock, of course, is joining us. Hi, Spock. How you doing? You're an Alien fan, aren't you? A Star Trek fan? Well, we're Star Trek fans, too. So, Alien is a great movie. I absolutely love it. And as you can see, I've had the few toys I collect. I've got the big chap from I think that's the NECA collection. Mr. Spock, are you going to behave for the show, or are you going to be a problem? Anybody got words in the chat for Mr. Spock? I'm sure they do. All right, but you got to go. So, there's so many reasons why I love Alien, and so many reasons why I have strong feelings about why I don't like Alien 3 or Resurrection or Prometheus. Actually, I will say about Prometheus, there's some good things in it. There's a good movie in there somewhere. And there's probably a good movie in all of the prequels and sequels that came along, as well as fan films and upcoming documentaries. And we're going to talk about them all. But first, I think we should start with Alien. But before we do, Martin, if I could get you, please, to share my screen. There's a few things to address here. So we are going to be talking about this Alien Expanded. But I would like to all encourage you to go to my Subscribestar, subscribestar.com/Christopher Moonlight. I should put it in the chat. This is who the show is brought to you by today. I haven't actually gotten any sponsors, so today's show is brought to you by me. And I'd like to also encourage everybody to watch The Quantum Terror, my first feature film horror movie on Tubi. It's about a young woman looking for her lost twin sister in underground tunnels that lead to another dimension filled with strange shadow people and Lovecraftian creatures. And it is heavily inspired by the Alien franchise. But again, also with my Subscribe Star, you will be supporting. Oh, look, you will be supporting me doing this show, as well as my upcoming Escape from Planet Omega 12, which I'm just going to show you right here. I'm working on a new video about the production of Escape from Planet Omega 12, including our 3D models, as well as, well, let me just scrub through here, of course. This is an unedited video, so it's just kind of got clips of different things. There's our model for Tara, the lead protagonist. We're going to change her design just a little bit, but let's see some of my past work. I think I do nice work, if I do say so myself. Here's an old science fiction spaceship test. And yes, the movie will have both practical effects miniatures, as this particular show, what I'm showing right here is. These are practical effects. This is not CGI, but combined with CGI characters. This is also practical effects, believe it or not. Let's see some of this stuff here. Just different examples of my work going through. Look at these planets. These planets are CGI, but this is Omega 12, the planet she'll be stranded on, as well as the gas giant that it orbits. I know technically it's a moon, but it sounds cooler to say planet Omega 12 instead of moon Omega 12. And people have been asking about the progress about the sculpture that I was working on in one of the other live streams not too long ago. So there's footage of me working on it, and it is coming along quite well, as you can see. So again, if you want to support me, just go to my Subscribe Star, or you can also follow on Substack. It won't have all the exclusive. My cat bit me, then jumped out the window. Oh my goodness. I did not throw my cat out the window. Anyway, yes. Now, if you want to follow me on Subscribe Star and you don't want to support, or you don't have money to support, that's fine. You can. There's still free content on Subscribe Star as well as Substack. So just Google. I should have put the link to that too. The Substack. Wait a minute. Hold on a second. There's the Substack. So ChristopherMoonlight.substack.com is where you'll find that. So from there, we'll get to this. So that's all. Those are today's sponsors. So we can pull that screen down for the moment until we're ready to talk about Aliens Expanded, because I'm excited about that. Or we can leave it up. So thanks, Martin. Alien. Did anybody here see Alien in the theater when it came out? I was a bit young.
No, I was too young.
I was 9.
You were 9? Okay.
Yeah.
I was 4 when Alien came out. And the first time I saw it, my mom rented it. She decided I was old enough to see it. I watched most of it from behind the couch. It scared me so much. I can't remember how old I was. Maybe 10 years old. I heard that. It was a profound experience, though. I was absolutely obsessed with it to the degree of probably Asperger's levels of obsession for a while. I collected everything that had Alien or Aliens printed on it, whatever comic books came out, toys, whatever. And there was a very limited amount of stuff at the time. Now you can find collectibles everywhere. But it was just an amazing movie. And then the more you dig into it, the more you find out the different creative minds that were behind it. Because even though you can source it to one writer becomes 2 writers, becomes 4 writers, becomes the director, becomes H.R. Giger, Carlos Rambaldi, I think is how you say his name. Chris doesn't have Aliens Hive. Aliens Hive, illustrated by Kelly Jones. I forget who wrote it, but that was a fun one. There was some great covers by Dave Dorman as well. Particularly like how they tied it into another comic book. I believe it was also just called Hive, about a scientist who makes a robotic ant to go down into a colony, and then they expanded that into making a robotic xenomorph that would go into the alien hive. Good morning, Ridgetop. Thank you so much for joining. Ridgetop is probably the number one guy, correct me if I'm wrong, behind Aliens versus Predator Galaxy. And I highly recommend that site for all Aliens and Predator news. I also had the privilege of touring him and his girlfriend through Studio ADI when I worked there. That was quite a good time. I also want to say, by the way, good morning to Sean Estep and Cameron Vale. Welcome to the show. So, yeah, it's just amazing how Alien came to be, and the impact it had on moviegoers. I think it was a great time to be seeing movies in the theater. We had just in 1977 had Star Wars. Was it 77? We had Star Wars. Before that, science fiction was kind of on the outs. Star Trek was doing all right in terms of syndication, and Star Wars became a big hit. And suddenly people were saying, we need to finance more big budget sci-fi. It's obviously the audiences want it. And it just so happened that Alien was the only script on anyone's desk. So it got the green light. At first, it was going to be budgeted at $4 million, which was still, even for then, quite low. Roger Corman had considered it. The script had been shopped around a bunch. Now, the result of the script, of course, was Dan O'Bannon, who was sleeping on Ron Shuset's couch, Ron Shuset being a screenwriting friend of his. So they were working. It was so much fun. Look, Ridgetop, the honor was mine. You don't understand. That was like the most fun part of the job, was bringing in the true fans, the true acolytes of the franchise. Or denizens, not acolytes, denizens of the franchise. Come here, Mr. Spock. I'm surprised I don't have any cats with alien names. Oh, we did actually. In Arizona, when I lived in Arizona, we had a couple of strays that would come to the door. One was orange, so we named it Jonesy, and the other one we named Vasquez. So I correct myself. But anyway, Dan O'Bannon was connected to a lot of really notable names in science fiction and just cinema in general. He had done with none other than John Carpenter a movie called Dark Star, which was kind of the comedy version of Alien. Dark Star was very low budget. It was meant to be a student film, and as Dan O'Bannon said himself, it was being attacked. It was supposed to be the greatest student film ever made, and it turned out being one of the worst mainstream theatrical releases ever made. That's him that said that. I actually enjoy Dark Star. It's slow and it's silly, but there's a lot of really fun stuff happening in there. And he and O'Bannon did a lot of the effects work for it. Tricks that I learned from. Okay, that's your butt, and that is horrifying. Okay, Mr. Spock, you got to go. It's too much. So anyway, from there, I believe it was none other than Alejandro Jodorowsky. I think you say Jodorowsky. Some people say Jodorowsky, who was doing Dune and had seen O'Bannon's work and actually had hired O'Bannon to come over to, I believe it was Spain, although I could be wrong, but I believe it was Spain, to work on his version of it. Now, people kind of say that not getting Jodorowsky's Dune was, a loss to cinema, that it was going to be this great masterpiece. If you actually watch the documentary, you'll realize that it was going to be bonkers. I mean, it's just going to
Yeah.
be weird stuff, including dog people. Yeah. Anyway, but Jodorowsky had brought in some really great artists, including Mobius and John Carpenter involved on Dark Star 2. Great show. Yeah, I had mentioned that. It was John Carpenter directed it. Dan O'Bannon did the effects, and I believe they wrote it together, but I could be wrong about that. Maybe Ridge Top will correct me. He knows more about this than I do. So from there, O'Bannon met H.R. Giger and Mobius and had time to work on Alien. Then Dune didn't work out, so he went back to Hollywood. He crashed on Shusette's couch, and they wrote Alien together. Long story short, they shopped it around. They got it to Brandywine, which was David Giler and Walter Hill. And there's another producer whose name I'm blocking on, but Walter Hill and David Giler rewrote the script. Didn't end up being too much different than what O'Bannon had written. Walter and Hill both claim it was terrible, but for the most part, what they added in was the android, Ash. That wasn't in O'Bannon's version. And just changed the names around a bit. But for the most part, it's the movie that we got. They brought in Ridley Scott, who had just done The Duelist. Now, this is something that I kind of want to segue into a little bit, which was Ridley Scott as a director and what he brought to it. But before I do, it was O'Bannon again who brought, I think Scott was already a Mobius fan, but it was Dan O'Bannon who brought H.R. Giger's book to Ridley Scott and said, look at this. This is fantastic. And Ridley Scott absolutely agreed. And then O'Bannon, which is a very rare thing, was allowed to, writers are usually discouraged from being part of production, but O'Bannon was a huge part of production and really kind of, while Ridley Scott was doing his thing, making sure that, he had the right actors and sets and he knew how he was going to shoot it, O'Bannon was going in and really kind of hammering home to the art department what things needed to be the quality that he thought that they should reach. And then Ridley Scott would come in and kind of give his notes as well. But Ridley Scott is someone who, to me, is a great example. And forget about, the movies that he did later on and whatever people may think of Alien Covenant or Prometheus. Ridley Scott really just was a force of nature. And he had essentially decided he was going to be a filmmaker. There was a Bolex, I think it was a 16 millimeter camera that was in the art department of his school. Nobody was using it. He got permission to use it. He read the instruction book and he just went to town. He and his brothers started their own commercial company that essentially they were directing a bunch of commercials. This is something that people don't realize about Ridley Scott. He had directed a ton of short films and commercials before he ever went and did The Duelist. I believe he funded The Duelist himself, but it was a studio film. The Duelist, which is just a triumph of his perseverance. This is a guy that wouldn't take no for an answer. This is a guy that would not let anybody tell him what he couldn't do or what he shouldn't do. And I think that's something that we are missing today creatively. People want to kind of say people are less creative because of this over here, or, they're too preoccupied with these things. No. It's essentially Ridley Scott went and just would not take no for an answer. He was relentless. He got The Duelist done. He took it to Cannes Film Festival. I think it won an award for being like the best. I don't think it was technically not an independent film, but I think it was best new director. Just a gorgeous film, and people watched it, and a lot of people went, well, what does this have to do with science fiction? And I think the mentality was more of, well, it doesn't. It just shows that here's someone that knows how to make things beautiful on a budget. And The Duelist, again, I think it had maybe it was The Duelist that also had a $4 million budget, but he pulled off every trick in the book to make that movie more rich and visually stimulating and make it look like it had more than it had. They had a carriage, and hey, I thought we weren't going to talk about The Other Night, Krampus. Sorry. But they had a carriage. They wanted to make it look like there were carriages going back and forth everywhere. They only had one carriage. So they painted different sides of the carriage, different colors. So they'd run it past the camera one way, it'd be one color. They'd show it moving away from the camera, it'd be another color. It was the same carriage over and over again, just dressed up on different sides. But they were also, did little kind of low budget tricks, like when they're dueling and they slash at each other and the sword hits some bricks, it sparks. Now, a sword wouldn't really spark unless there was flint in the stone, but they wanted to have that dramatic emphasis. So they wired batteries to the sword and put some chicken wire hidden along the stone. So when they slashed the sword along the stone, it would spark. They paid attention to little historical details, like the captains of the military captains would have braids going down their face. The purpose of those braids just weren't aesthetic. They were necessary because those braids they get them as thick as possible, because if someone slashed with a sword at your face, it would hit that braid and cut the braid, but not your cheek. So it was just that kind of attention to detail that Ridley Scott had, that showed these producers that this is a guy who's going to do everything he can to make a low budget B movie concept, which had already been seen with movies like The Terror from Beyond Space and Planet of the Vampires. And boy, if you watch Planet of the Vampires, that movie pretty much is Prometheus. But Ridley Scott brought something new to it, and so did H.R. Giger, and so did everybody. So it was kind of this perfect storm in a teacup, lightning in a bottle movie, that when it came onto the stage, with these shocking scenes like the chest burster, nobody had ever seen anything like that before. Even though, again, the concept was not new, it had been in, I think the same concept was in. Maybe it wasn't The Terror from Beyond Space, but I remember seeing a movie where someone gets X-rayed and there are parasites in his chest. It's an old black and white movie. But the execution was like nothing anybody had ever seen before. So I'm, again, very, to this day, impressed with that movie, enamored with its content, its design, but just, I think it continues to be something that 40 years down the road, we're still talking about, because of that dedication from so many great artists and writers coming together. And there you go. That's Alien in a nutshell for me. John, what about you?
Well, Alien, I saw probably, I want to say I was 12. Obviously, we rented it because, I was 9 when the movie came out. And it was probably one of the scariest things I'd seen at the time. But, I mean, I'm kind of weird. Horror movies and stuff don't scare me. The only movie that's ever scared me enough to give me nightmares was The Swarm. And that's just because we had been studying killer bees at during school at that time when that movie was out. So, but, yeah, it was probably one of the first movies that I thought that I started to learn about, okay, these are different cinema techniques that I didn't know about just looking at, just watching movies. Oh, okay, well, that's a story, it's monsters here, whatever. But I could see, I started understanding stuff like pacing and stuff like that I didn't before. So that's what Aliens means to me.
What about you, Martin? What was your experience with Alien? Did you have something? Do you have something that was like a lasting impression about that movie?
lasting impression? No, I I I don't remember if I saw it on home video or on TV. I'm sorry for that.
No
Uh,
problem.
because I couldn't watch it on cinemas. I had, I think, 6 years, and I only knew of the movie by billboards and my one of my uncle. He was the only one in the family besides me that likes who liked sci-fi and that sort of thing. So he went to cinemas, but he only told me that it was awesome, but he wasn't going to describe it to me. And I grew with the anticipation. So when I really when I saw it finally, I really liked it. Uh, I oh man, I cannot, because it was so different to anything I was being able to see at the moment. It was the first mixture between sci-fi and horror that I saw, and it was so well done, so masterfully done. I freaking love it, man.
Well, I think you guys both bring up the techniques, that set it apart from Boosh McFadden. I loved it. It was sci-fi suspense at its best. Absolutely. And welcome to the show. The techniques that Ridley Scott employed, again, talking about The Duelist, he came at it with that same mentality. First of all, the sets. Sigourney Weaver's upskirt with no skirt scene. The sets were phenomenal. And they had both Mobius and H.R. Giger working on them. And the idea was that Mobius was taking care of things like the spacesuits and the spaceships. And I don't think they had, no, it wasn't Ron Cobb. Rob Cobb. I can't talk all of a sudden. Ron Cobb didn't come in until the next, till Aliens. But I think it was Mobius that was taking care of most of the general designs, and they were having the model builders kind of do their own thing as well. They were buying a lot of parts from model shops, just like they did with Star Wars. It's what they call kit bashing. No, not Randall Tex Cobb. Ron Cobb. Yeah, not rom-com. It's going to be a running gag throughout the whole show.
Corn cob?
Bashing. What?
Corn cob?
Corn cob. Corn Pop was a bad dude. So anyway, yeah, but they were kit bashing, which was taking model parts from different airplanes and cars, engines, that sort of thing, and putting them all together. Now, the funny thing is that's how they made a lot of the miniatures in Star Wars. For Alien, they were actually taking parts from Star Wars model kits and putting them into the construction of the ship. As a matter of fact, the clamp that releases the Nostromo when they drop down to the planet has R2-D2 legs all around it. If you look really close, you can see them. But the miniatures and the designs were beautiful. Again, Ridley Scott really knew how to shoot them. But the idea was that, the technical stuff, the human stuff would be Mobius, and the alien stuff would be H.R. Giger. Giger was originally just going to design the big chap, but then he also ended up designing the entire planet. Yeah, and there's a lot. By the way, I recommend, there's a channel, a YouTube channel called A Sense of Scale, I believe is what it's called. And it has a lot of stuff about the miniatures of Alien, as well as other great movies. So just having Giger create those environments in such stark contrast to the kind of human industrial, the grating and the lights behind panels and wiring and all that stuff. They both had the tubing in common, though. Giger would use the that kind of industrial tubing and incorporate it to give this the idea of essentially what he termed biomechanical, which was the machine aesthetic in an organic setting, which I think is something that people have tried to emulate ever since, but never really quite gotten to the point that H.R. Giger brought it to. And Joe's Atmosphere says, yes, Boosh McFadden, they're worth watching once for the talent of the design and the effects, but the scripts are filled with plot holes like they were shot up by Mac 10s full of clips. What movie are we talking about there?
The sequels after the second one.
Oh, okay, yeah. Boy, we'll get to that. Some panning shots and shots of the ship are very slow, and the music is ominous. But I'm staring at the screen, engaged instead of getting bored. Yeah, well, that's because this goes back to something I've said before, which is if you love a medium like Ridley Scott loved film, then you know how to show people its strengths and its beauty. So in some scenes that you would call slow in other movies are riveting when it comes to someone like Ridley Scott, because he knows how to he presents it to you in the same way that a painting in a gallery is presented to you. If it's done right, you can sit or stand and stare at it for ages and continue to see things and appreciate the artistry behind it, which I think is something that people forget these days. They're just like, here's the script, here's the actors, shoot it, go, and then get it up on the screen, and it ends up taking away from something that otherwise would be fantastic. And that's where Ridley Scott came in. He decided to shoot with anamorphic lenses, and he even shot his wide shots with lenses that would otherwise be considered telescopic. He shot with a lot of 50 millimeter lenses or 85 millimeter lenses in anamorphic, which you would usually shoot close up, but he would pull the camera back so far that he would get wide shots with it, but it would give everything this really rich, compressed look. And you would get those lens flares, which, if you look at people like J.J. Abrams, they watched movies like Close Encounters of the Third Kind and Alien, and all they saw were the lens flares. So they just went, lens flares are cool. They're, and they went crazy with them. But, back then it was a new thing, and it kind of gave the stories a documentary feel. And I think that's one of the things that Ridley Scott did. He gave it both a cinematic quality and a documentary feel. Case in point, when they land and they go out to walk to where the derelict ship is, there were full-size sets there, but he still wanted them to look bigger. So he shot them with compressed lenses. He got his little kids into smaller versions of the suits. So as they're walking through the sets, it makes everything look bigger. The main thing that this was really used on was the space jockey. If you notice in the close-ups where they're kind of leaning over it and it's actually the actors, they look a little bigger next to it than the wide shots where they look smaller because it's actually kids in suits. It's just, again, a brilliant way of giving everything a sense of scale. With the derelict ship, it was a miniature, and it looked good in terms of wide shots, establishing shots. But then they tried to give it, they wanted to have the cameras handheld going up to the ship to make it look like the point of view of the crew of the Nostromo. But every time they did it, it's just the tabletop that they had it on wasn't big enough to accommodate the camera. So every time they moved the camera, it would give it away that it was a miniature. So in the director's commentary, if you watch that, Ridley Scott talks about how they actually, he talked to some of the crew and says, does anybody have camcorders? Because video was very new, but the quality was, old. I don't even think it was VHS. It was like beta. Tony Scott screwed himself jumping into water. He's trapped forever. Yeah, poor poor Tony Scott. There's a lot of tragedy in Ridley Scott's life because he's lost 2 brothers. But anyway, so Ridley Scott had the camcorders on set, so they actually shot the scenes with camcorders to make it look like they were looking through the cameras of the astronauts' suits being beamed back to or broadcast back to the ship. And then he went and he showed that on screens, and he shot the screen with a film camera, so he had that video look on film. Just all these brilliant techniques that he used to really bring it to life. And the other thing that he did was casting, just excellent casting. Sigourney Weaver was actually the unknown in the cast because was it Yaphet Kotto? I know I'm saying that name wrong.
No, you got it right.
Oh, I got it right? Okay. See, this is my confidence in pronouncing names. So even when I get it right. So Yaphet Kotto and Sigourney Weaver, newcomer. Suddenly I'm blocking on everyone. So Yaphet Kotto, who played Brett and Ash. It's all gone. John Hurt played Kane.
Yeah.
But these were all stellar actors, and Sigourney Weaver was only known in the theater, so she was kind of feeling like the odd person out, which kind of helped add to the character because she was the one fighting all of them. They were all kind of jaded, and the captain's just like, I don't want to hear it. I'm just going to follow orders, standard procedures, whatever the hell they tell you to do. And Ash, of course, turns out to be a robot who has nefarious intent and is undermining her deliberately.
Okay, yes, I must distance myself from your bigoted views. They prefer the term artificial person.
Of course.
Tom Skerritt, Harry Dean Stanton, Ian Holm.
Stanton, yeah. And who played Ash? You got it.
Ian Holm.
Ian Holm, who went on to do other sci-fi classics like The Fifth Element, and of course he was The Hobbit. He was Bilbo Baggins in
Lord of the Rings.
Yep.
So some real what?
Which the name of the production company, Brandywine, comes from Lord of the Ring.
Yep.
That's right. Yeah. So
Veronica Cartwright too.
Veronica Cartwright.
She was Lambert,
who was in The Birds.
Yep.
She was just a little girl when she's in there, so she worked with some of the best as well. Harry Dean Stanton, I love, and I actually share a birthday with him, which was always fun to be able to say. So just a phenomenal cast, and they were working on sets that were completely immersive. So the Nostromo set, you actually had to walk through to get to the different compartments. It wasn't like false walls where they said cut and then you look the other way and you just see scaffolding and cameras and crew behind you. They were actually in an immersive set, and scenes like the chestburster scene. They tried to there's stories about how they didn't know what was going to happen, and they're like, no, of course we knew what was going to happen. It's in the script, but they didn't want to show us too much, and they surprised us with all the blood canisters that spurt everywhere. So there's great behind the scenes or deleted scenes of Veronica Cartwright getting hit full in the face with a spray of blood, screaming and falling over behind a couch. You just see her feet flip up the other side. So I mean, it just seemed like an amazing set. So again, I just can't say enough about this film and all the hard work that went behind it. Brandywine River, not Brandywine. It's funny. I was just listening the other day about the Brandywine production company. I can't remember if they talked about exactly how they named it, but of course, Scott Free Productions, that's an obvious one. But it's just a brilliant movie. And we talked about Aliens last time. James Cameron, he looked at all of this and he really truly appreciated everything that had been accomplished there. When you listen to his director's commentary on Aliens, one of the things he says is, I went to school on Ridley Scott, just shooting with longer lenses, and James Cameron managed to inject his own style of directing into there, but he did it in a way that was very respectful from what had come before in terms of the look of the film, the aesthetic, and just making it all look like it came from the same world. So I think that from there, and Martin just disappeared. I was going to ask him to bring back the screen. There is a new documentary coming out about aliens, and I forgot to talk about it last time, or maybe I mentioned it. I don't remember if I did. If you remember if I did, John, but did we talk at all about Aliens Expanded?
No, we didn't. I don't think we did.
So Aliens Expanded is, let's see, I'll read, when Martin comes back, I'll ask him to share the screen. But here's from their website. In 1986, James Cameron directed one of the greatest sequels of all time, taking the characters, action, and design of Ridley Scott's original Alien masterpiece to a new level, and we've been obsessed with it ever since. Now it's time to revisit LV-426 again, this time with a different mission. Welcome to a new species of documentary. You are invited to join us on an unmissable year-long celebration of James Cameron's epic that concludes with the release of Aliens Expanded, the most sophisticated and passionate exploration of aliens ever made. Together, we will delve deeper than ever before into what makes this film so special, so magical, that we can't help but return to it again and again. By the end, you will come to know and love our favorite film even more. Aliens Expanded will be the ultimate love letter to aliens, the people who made it, and the communities who love it. And I believe Aliens versus Predator Galaxy is involved in this to some degree as well. Featuring brand new interviews with the original cast and crew, this will be the most detailed analysis ever made of our favorite film. To ensure our documentary truly reflects the incredible legacy of this beloved epic, we'll also be working closely with the Aliens fan community, including interviewing key Aliens influencers, partnering with top fan communities, and encouraging backers to give feedback on the project. So it's a crowdfunder, and they've got backers in there, and there's all sorts of information. Oh, here we go. Partnerships: Alien Theory, AVP Central, Perfect Organism. I also know Jamie Prater at Perfect Organism podcast. They're on Spotify and on YouTube. They do extensive alien analysis. Aliens versus Predator Galaxy, Gateway Station, Project Archeron, Acheron. Do you see that, Archeron? Anyway, all sorts of different fan communities are involved. And these people did, I think they did a documentary about 80s sci-fi action movies. They've got, of course, Carrie Henn, Mark Rolston, who played Drake, Jeanette Goldstein, who was Vasquez, Tom Woodruff Jr., who I got to work with for Studio ADI, William Hope, who was Gorman, Rico Ross, who was Frost, Matt Winston, who is Stan Winston's son and co-founder of the Stan Winston School of Character Arts, and let's see, people from the Alien comics, and some other people who are like influencers and that sort of thing. Results may vary. When it comes to, it's funny, the fan community, as all fan communities are, is a funny thing, because you get some people who are, true archivists and, want to preserve the history. And then you get people who kind of want to come in and give their opinions on not just what they think Alien, the franchise, means, but almost kind of trying to inject what they think. And then you kind of get into these, like all fan communities, these fights about, what it means, what it's supposed to mean. And it kind of, for me, that gets a little far afield. But I'm really excited about this documentary because the Aliens disc set, every film comes with like 3+ hours of documentary material just on one particular movie. And I can't get enough of those. I watch them over and over again because there's so much about the making of, like what we've been talking about here, the sets, the filming techniques, the motivations of the directors, the art department, the special effects, all that sort of thing. So when the Movies That Made Us came out with an Aliens episode, some people were complaining, well, it tells us a bunch of stuff we already know. It wasn't stuff that I already know, but sometimes I just like hearing people talk about this stuff in new ways. So I'm very excited about this. I hope Martin comes back soon so I can kind of share the website one more time. But it is aliens-expanded.com for anybody that wants to check it out. I'll put it in the chat for when...
Give me a second. I'll log out and come back in my other account.
Oh, okay. Can you do it from there?
Yeah, I'll be back.
Thanks. So I don't know where Martin went, but I want to share this particular website, and I apologize. I'm not seeing your comments because Martin he pulls them up for me. But let's look at the comments. The Aliens behind the scenes documentaries are the only behind the scenes videos I've ever stuck around to watch, and that's Dueling Dragon Adventures. And welcome, by the way. And I watch them again and again. I have movies that I'll buy not because I like them, but I just want to see the behind the scenes, like Aliens versus Predator Requiem, or as I like to call it, Aliens versus Predator Requiem. It nearly killed them. Terrible movie, but I wanted to see the behind the scenes with the making of the animatronics and the special effects, all that stuff that I really love. But I don't go back to them over and over again like I do with this. So yes, thank you, John. So you can go to, again, aliens.expanded.galaxy or aliens-expanded.com. I was thinking of Aliens versus Predator Galaxy. But you can, I think you can sign up for their mailing list. Do you think that we won't get dinged for copyright for playing this one, right?
No, we shouldn't.
We shouldn't. Let's see if we can. The audio should be working. Let me know if you can hear it.
Welcome back, Martine.
What?
Can you hear it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is pretty quiet, though. Let me see if I can adjust the volume. Nope, I can't.
Hold on a second. You can barely hear it?
Yeah.
How do we turn that up? Is there a way to increase the volume somehow?
Only on your end?
Yeah.
Let's see. What do I have to do? Hold on. Let me make sure. Let's see. Let me stop sharing this for a second. Let me try one more time. Okay, let's try it now. I might not have had the...
There we go. Yeah.
I want this thing to go.
All right, well, hold on a second. Let's start from the beginning.
Bio readouts are all on the green. Looks like she's alive.
You're going out there to destroy them, right? Not to study.
That's the plan.
These people are here to protect you. You're soldiers.
It won't make any difference.
I want this thing to go smooth and by the numbers.
Let's rock!
I say we take off and nuke the entire site from orbit. It's the only way to be sure.
Drop your grinning and drop your linen. Multiple signals.
Have a glorious day, Nicole.
My name is Ian Nathan. I'm the author of Alien Vault, and I'm the writer-director of Aliens Expanded. Aliens Expanded will be the most sophisticated and passionate exploration of aliens ever made.
We're on express elevator to hell.
The reason we come back to aliens again and again is because there's something magical within it. There's something I don't think even Cameron could explain, but we're going to try and find it.
All right, gear up. 2 minutes, people.
Just a brilliant film. We love it, and we just want to talk about it.
Is this going to be a stand-up fight, sir, or another bug hunt?
There's something universal at the heart of Cameron's filmmaking. He creates characters you love, that you recognize, that you relate to. He creates themes within his films, and especially with aliens, that come to the heart of the human experience.
You don't talk much, do you?
We're going to come at it in a new way. We're going to look at film in a different way. We're going to give it a different energy. This is as much about loving aliens as it is about understanding aliens. We're going to go out and talk about the theories, the in-world stuff, where the creature came from, the biology of aliens. Just go deeper and find something new, that's something beneath what we already have. So when you watch the film again, the first thing you'll do is turn on Aliens Expanded afterwards to go, oh yeah, God, great. We are running an ongoing consultation with our backers to ensure that our documentary truly reflects the incredible legacy of this beloved epic.
Magnificent, isn't it?
You'll receive an exclusive invitation to a year-long fan experience, including live cast and crew Q&As, vidcasts, and community events. Then at the end of the project, you'll receive your copy of the documentary and other physical rewards, including posters, a sew-on patch, and a certificate, as well as your name in the credits as a personal and unique memento of your love for aliens.
Okay, what do I do?
Okay, I'm on it.
So, I mean, I think it's great. And for me, I mean, I just, last year, actually, we're coming up on it. We have a family tradition. Now that my girls are older, Robin Block is an executive producer at Aliens Expanded. Awesome. Welcome to the show, by the way. Thank you for being here. Yeah, every year now that my daughters are older, we find a new scary movie for them to watch. And my daughter, who is 11 now, she was 10 last year, we decided to show her Alien on New Year's Eve. That's our New Year's Eve tradition. And then the next day we showed her Aliens. And for someone who's not a science fiction fan at all, although she obsessively watches Stranger Things over and over again, she loved it. And she was, talking to the screen, reacting to all the right parts. So it's something, and she's even told me, she's like, I like older movies. And I said, why? She's like, they're just better. Even kids recognize quality and stuff. And just because we're seeing movies that are substandard these days, it doesn't mean that, obviously we as fans who are older watch these newer movies and we can recognize why they're not as good. But the current generation, I see it in my kids. I can see their preference. And this goes back to what I've always said about the audience always being right. You can't fake that. You can get people who will shill, or people who, a minority of people who will like something that most people don't, and who will go out of their way to extol its virtues. But ultimately, it's proven in posterity, in the staying power. And both Alien and Aliens has that staying power. And that's what, John, what you said. How many Aliens movies are there?
2.
There's only 2. So, but we're going to talk about those substandard fan films in the next hour. We got a few minutes left, and I'm still getting used to the whole advertising break thing with the music coming in. But I'm anticipating it so I can get ready to wrap it up. But yeah, I mean, John or Martin, is there anything else that you guys want to say before we move on to where it all goes wrong?
I just wish more executives got the fact that the audience is always right and started paying attention to what their audience wants.
Not only what their audience wants, but what the audience just intuitively responds to.
Yeah. There's a lot. It's like they're making movies for themselves and not for the audience anymore. And there's a lot of directors and a lot of executives that have forgotten that. But I think that a lot of the older movies didn't. And that's why we get classics like Aliens, like Alien, like
Jaws,
Raiders
of the Lost Ark, The Thing,
Star Wars, just Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah. One of the things about this documentary too that I'm excited about is they mention, the theories, the biology of the alien. There's so much that was implied with the first 2 movies. So much potential for such unique, just original ideas that were not only not expanded upon in the later movies, and I also include the prequels. Aliens versus Predator tried to a little bit, but I consider that more of in the Predator universe than the Aliens universe. They're Predator movies that happen to have aliens in them. But, it seems like, especially Ridley Scott with Prometheus and Covenant, he wanted to take, and again, this is an instance of that whole idea of reversing expectations. He took all the most unique things about the franchise and stepped on them by doing that weird ancient aliens. Oh, they're just us. They're just big, lumpy, pale-looking humanoids who made us. And David made the xenomorph. And it's like, what are you doing? That's like the least interesting direction you could possibly go. And it feels like with all franchises, it's like their new thing. It's like, let's be spiteful and just take these franchises in the least interesting direction that they can go, purely for our own edification. So we can act like we're smarter, like the bully who steps on a little kid's toys. And, when the kid's upset, he goes, "What? Toys break. That's life. Get used to it." It's like, we're not here for real life. We're here for entertainment. We're here for the potential of the human imagination, not this nihilistic garbage that essentially, in my opinion, is what made Alien 3 go so wrong. So we'll talk about that. Should I be played out soon? It's 11:01, or should we just keep going? We'll save that for the new year.
Keep going.
Keep going. All right, we're gonna keep going. So for me, in 1993, I think it was, somebody had told me, maybe it was in 92, somebody had told me, oh, you have to rent this movie. You'll be really happy you did. And I can't remember what the movie was, but I said, well, I don't want to watch that movie. And they're like, no, there's a teaser trailer for Alien 3 in it. I was, what? Knowing what an obsessive Aliens fan I was. So I went and rented this movie. I remember I took it over to my friend Rob Jimenez's house. And he was a big fan as well. And we popped it in the VCR, and there was a trailer that came out, and it was simply an alien egg over Earth with a voice with gravitas saying, in 1993, you will learn that on Earth, everyone can hear you scream. And of course, my friend and I were just like, oh my God, it's happening. like that Office thing. Like, oh my God, it's happening. Stay calm. You might hear barking. There's a FedEx truck here. So my dog's going to go crazy. So our doc is all about going deeper into that movie. Yeah. Well, Robin, I want to say this is what I'm excited about the documentary for. That's, yeah, it's not a making of. I can see you said that. I'm sure there'll be some behind the scenes content. I mean, you have it in the trailer, but if you're now, Robin, I'm assuming that when you say you're a producer, you're not like a member that contributed style producer. You're an actual producer in this. If so, we got to have you on sometime. And nerding out about all of it. Yeah, absolutely. There was so much potential behind the two. You know, for me, the space stuff, but I love the idea. I'm the CEO of the Creator
VC.
Creator VC. Okay. Oh, here's the music. I hear it. Yeah, there was so much more potential in those movies of exploring just how alien the alien is. But then we went the other way. So we're going to talk about that in the second hour. Did I do it too soon?
That was perfect, man.
Perfect.
Yep.
All right. I gotta like listen to the music on my own so I can kind of know how to time out when to wrap it up. Robin Block, yeah, I would love to have you on. I would say that we definitely got to set that up. So I will message you on Twitter. If I can do that through the Alien Expanded site, I think that's or not the site, but the Twitter. If you're available through messaging through there, I will hit you up.
Now we need to do this.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to the middle of the film.
Robin, I just followed you on Twitter, so if you follow me back, I can send you a link and you can join us.
Excellent. So Alien 3, we had, like I said, I had such high hopes for it. Now, a lot of people kind of mock the fans for saying, well, you know, you're just mad because they killed off Newton Hicks. Well, first of all, a lot of other reasons that movie doesn't work. But second of all, why wouldn't they be mad that you killed off Newton Hicks? They were amazing characters, and they were everything that Ripley fought for in Aliens. So to kind of have David Fincher come along and, like I said, step on that. Now, it wasn't entirely David Fincher's idea to kill off Newt and Hicks. That was on the table beforehand. There were just a lot of bad decisions that went on throughout that process. Sigourney Weaver didn't want to have any guns. She was very anti-gun. I think in the process of doing that, she proved just why it's so important to have guns in a situation like that. A lot of lives probably could have been saved if they did. I think David Fincher had the idea of making the characters bald, which made most of them indistinct from one another. So when they're running around in the corridors, You don't know what's going on. And that's essentially what most of the movie becomes, is people running around in corridors, swearing and being idiots. And the characters contradict themselves a lot. I wasn't a fan of Charles Dutton's acting. I thought he overacted. He was very much, had put on that sermonizing voice, which was sort of appropriate for the character, but got old fast. It was a movie that went nowhere and ended abruptly for no reason. I won't give the source, but somebody I know that worked with David Fincher said David Fincher did the opposite of what James Cameron did. James Cameron went in and said, I'm going to make a movie that is going to continue the story from where Ridley Scott left off. And Fincher came in and said, I'm going to do something better than I'm going to do something better than James Cameron. And I'm going to go back to Alien. Well, you can't go back. And if you're going to go back, it has to be for a good reason. Alien 3 for me failed on all levels. The story was not cohesive. It kept changing its mind to what it wanted to be. It did away with all the interesting characters in favor of characters that weren't interesting at all. And the biggest of all was it wasn't scary. Robin Block, welcome. Thank you for joining us on such short notice. How are you?
Yeah, really good. I'm going to turn my camera around so I can be... There we go. Yeah, do you know what's so random? I was just checking the Aliens Expanded Instagram, and I saw that you had tagged us. So I literally just went in and had a look and realized you were talking about our project. So I love it when things like that happen. And thanks for... I missed the early part, so hopefully what you said was good. but if you've got any questions about it, fire away.
Well, we watched your trailer for it, and it looks like an amazing project.
Yeah, you know what? So we're actually in production now. So we did our crowdfunding in September, and that was really successful. It's one of our most successful launches. We've done 6 interviews so far. So we've had Lance Henriksen, Jeanette Goldstein, Mark Rolston, Rico Ross. We did Matt Winston, who's the son of Stan Winston, and we've got oodles of interviews to come. But it's a very different type of project for us. So I've got my kids. We've just arrived in France at my dad's place, literally about half an hour ago. So it's probably a little bit noisy, but
no worries at all. We love kids. We've got kids and animals that are always disrupting the show here.
So. Yeah. So basically, I came up with the idea for Aliens Expanded when I was flying out to Hollywood for the premiere of In Search of Tomorrow, which was our massive 5-hour epic 80s sci-fi documentary. And if you know what Creative EC does, we're known for doing these massive kind of genre retrospectives, which are just kind of like nostalgia porn. And those are really fun, and we're going to carry on doing them. But I wanted to actually do the opposite, go deep, really deep into one movie. And so the kind of rally cry with Aliens Expanded is if you're of a certain age, Aliens hit you when you were like a young teenager. It's one of those movies that you come back to in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, and it just doesn't ever get worse. It gets better, actually. And so really the premise for Aliens Expanded is let's get thousands of Aliens fans together to explore that movie, scene by scene. What are the fan theories? What are the things we don't know? How can we nerd out on the science? How can we understand what's happening in certain scenes, and all of that kind of stuff? And so basically that's the plan of Aliens Expanded. And the guy that I'm working with, who I'm thrilled to be working with, is a guy called Ian Nathan, who is one of Europe's leading film journalists. He's literally written the book. He did Alien Vault, the book. His most recent book is a retrospective on James Cameron, which just got published. And our advisor circle is made up of all the leaders of the Aliens fan communities, and I'm talking about channels like YouTube channels like Alien Theory, Wayland Yutani Facebook group, the Soloco Facebook group. There's so many, and they're all amazing. So this is very much powered by fandom. This is a way. This whole project is more than a documentary; it's a journey, and it's a manifestation of that fandom. So when people say, "Oh, there's already making ofs," like we know the making ofs that have been done in like at the end of the 90s and early 2000s, they're amazing. That's not what we're trying to do. In fact, one of our contributors is Charles De La Ruca, who did all of those. This is about recontextualizing Aliens, about all of us going back into it, nerding out. And in the trailer, you see a part of it where you've got the Aliens movie in a three-dimensional space, and you're flying into it. Right? That's our hook into it. We're going to be flying into the movie, unpacking scenes, nerding out about it, finding out about it, and it'll be so much fun. I'm so hyped for this project because the team I've got on it are world class. Like everyone, sometimes things get willed into existence. This is an example of that. It's getting willed into existence.
That's so exciting to me. And before we go on, I just want to say hi to Zax and Dragon Ruse and War Monkey. Or no, we said we're going to Dragon Ruse already, but good morning again. Those are more people in the chat. Yeah, and this is exciting to me just because, like I said, I think my wife is maybe getting a little sick. Uh-oh, he froze up. No, he's back. My wife might be getting a little sick of how many times I've watched the behind the scenes in my box set through the 20 years that we've been married, maybe once a month every year. I'm always looking for new material. The movies that made us when that came out.
Christopher, you're one of us. You're one of it's like it's the rally cry, and it's just the same for the team. We love going over it and seeing new things. And the pitch for Aliens Expanded is once you watch Aliens Expanded, we know if we've done a great job, we'll know because the first thing you do will be to go back and revisit Aliens, and it will be like a new movie to you because you'll be looking at things that are very familiar, but you'll be seeing them in a new way. That's what we're trying to accomplish.
Aliens is one of those films that I wish that I could go back and see for the first time again. So with your project, it sounds like by watching that, I will see things in a whole new light, and it'll be like watching Aliens again.
And this isn't sort of, our mission as a business is collaborative entertainment. So, we don't just say, hey, give us some cash and see you in a year. There's like all these events that are happening all the way through the production process. Live talent Q&As, live vidcasts where we discuss just like a similar setup to what you're doing now, but we discuss very specific things. We've just sent out our updated version of the synopsis for backers that can comment directly on the Google Doc, right? Like this is, obviously we know what we're doing and we have a direction, we have a synopsis, and we push that out when we were doing crowdfunding. But every time, after a few months, we revisit it. And it's so interesting having the backers. And we've got about 2,700 backers on this project. Are actually contributing, saying, can you do this? Can you do that? Obviously we can't do it all, but there's some really good ideas coming out of it. And so, like, what I'd like to happen is if you're a supporter of Aliens Expanded, obviously you get your name in it, you get a whole bunch of other stuff. But I want it to be something that is an extension of your fandom. It's a manifestation of something you care about. And for a year and a bit, it will be like the most fun hobby.
I really understand where you're coming from with this because you probably missed it because you're coming in late. But I Ridgetop from Aliens versus Predator Galaxy was here earlier. I don't know if he's still in the chat, but I got to work for Studio ADI, Tom Woodruff Jr. and Alec Gillis.
We've just done Tom Woodruff Jr. as well a couple of weeks ago.
They're fantastic people, and they hired me because I was a fan, not of the Alien franchise specifically, but just of practical effects in general. And you know, I do my own movies, and they've helped me with those. But when I worked for them, I was their director of social media. And so one of my jobs was to bring, you know, invite people that would, you know, media people, but I made sure to invite the fans. So I invited Ridgetop and his girlfriend from Aliens versus Predator Galaxy, Jamie Prater from Perfect Organism.
Brilliant guys. You know, both AVP Galaxy and Perfect Organism are part of our advisor circle.
I think, yeah, we saw it in there. Just, you know, the thrill of that, though, bringing them into, you know, I myself getting to work there was a dream come true, but then bringing other people in and taking them on the tour of the showroom and the shop and seeing their excitement, and then talking to other employees. There was one employee there. I won't say his name because I don't want to embarrass him, but he was telling me a story about how he was at the shop alone at night, you know, one time, and he saw one of the alien heads, and he's like, I'm going to put it on, you know, just so he put it on, and then it got stuck on his head. So he was terrified he was going to be stuck there all night with an alien head on, and then have to confess what he did and have help prying it off. Fortunately, he got it off. But that's, again, just, you know, that wanting to, loving something so much that you want to be in the fabric of it, you know, and giving, and I haven't seen your other documentaries because I'm broke most of the time and can't contribute.
You know what?
But
That Draz Wolfen, John.
Yeah, that's Wolfen.
I'll remember. I'll send you guys a bunch of codes. Right.
Oh, thank you so much.
In fact, John,
awesome.
if you can ping me your email address on Twitter chat, I'll just send you a bunch of codes. You know, have a look at what we've done. I think they're the best genre film documentaries ever made. They're certainly the most successful. And I think
I eat them up whenever I get them, so I'm really excited.
They're like 5 hours. We've just released In Search of Darkness 3, right, which is 5 hours 41 minutes, and that's the third part of our 80s franchise. So the whole runtime is over 14 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's got
a lot of content.
Yeah, like but it's kind of like all the talent from 80s horror movies that are still alive, some that are now unfortunately no longer with us. So like our job really is to sort of create like a nostalgic touchstone for everyone to kind of remember and relive why they love this stuff in the first place. You know,
do you eventually release them on video on demand, or do they stay in your own?
Yeah, so the horror ones are on Shudder. The sci-fi one is on Vimeo on demand. So if you went to 80sci-fi.com, you can buy that. You guys don't need to because I'll send you codes. But our model's very different. So we're really a direct-to-consumer business. So the people that we care about aren't the general audience. We don't really care about the general audience. We care about super fans. We care about people that will want to put $60, $70, $100 into something which is going to have hours of entertainment, and that's even before it's finished. So with Aliens Expanded, just with the schedule of like live events and recorded events that we're going to be doing, you're looking at over 25 hours of material, including the documentary. So it's like the ultimate kind of nerd out. And I think it's really important. Like when I come up with these projects, I'm the audience. I want to create something that I would want to buy into. And that Aliens Expanded is that. It was like, how can I nerd out on aliens in a new way? Because I love film criticism. I love like all the YouTube channels that talk about, I'm big, you know, I consume a lot of that. But the difference is I want to be part of it. And I want to allow all the backers to be part of it, to have a physical thing they can hold, posters they can frame. In some cases, posters they can have their name on, right? Which is a kind of, because the movies and the eras that we focus on are ones where they're kind of keyed into your identity. I can see both of you, like, if we met in a bar and started talking about aliens, we would be best mates by the end of the night. Like, it would just be, that's just how, it's like a common, you know, it's a pop culture touchstone for so many people, and it's titles like Aliens that we want to revisit. And I can tell you, my bigger plan is to ace this format, completely deliver for the backers, but do it again. There's a whole host of movies where there's enough depth there for us to sort of go nuts. And
this is the wonderful thing about them, though, and what a lot of we do a lot of pop culture stuff here pretty much every day. I'm not the host every day. I'm only the host on Tuesdays. Gary is the host most days, and we also have Keith and John Dustwolf, and he also hosts sometimes. But we're always covering pop culture, and one of our laments is that a lot of modern movies just don't have that depth and excitement. I think the last one that I really remember is Lord of the Rings, and I'm sure there are some exceptions that prove the rule, but for the most part, like you said, it's part of the culture, the DNA of our culture at that time, and they're products of their time while also being timeless. And I think that there's a lot, not only for super fans, but I would encourage, I'm a filmmaker. I've made one movie. I'm working on my second movie right now. Anybody who is a aspiring filmmaker or storytelling in any form should be diving into material on this level.
It's so interesting. I completely agree with you. And I think in some ways, I recognize that I look back on those, on the 80s specifically, with rose tinted glasses. And it was really when I hit my late 30s that I felt like a very strong emotional pull to revisit that. And it's about revisiting when you were young. It's about, remembering watching these films for the first time, especially if it's horror, watching them with your friends when you were a little bit too young. And, I recognize that. And I think in some ways it's unfair, because I have a bias, right? No new movie can compete with like a RoboCop or a Terminator or an Aliens, because of context. But I think the whole landscape for film has changed. It's changing again at the moment. I'm very careful. No one's interested in my opinions on film anyway. But I'm not one of these people that comments about other people's work, because, and this, Christopher, like how hard it is to make anything. So I just feel sad sometimes when I want to enjoy something and it doesn't quite do it for me. I get disappointed. But often in the last year, I've seen a few movies that I really enjoyed, as experiences. But there's nothing that's blown my mind like so many classics from the 80s. And I don't know why that was. I can't tell you. You probably know. I don't know.
Well, what I think it is that even if it was in the 80s, if there was a bad movie, it didn't feel like the filmmaker was trying to hurt us. And now there's because, probably because of the internet and, but there's been a reversal of, now it's, I think a lot of filmmakers, because they work so hard on stuff, they feel a little bit of an entitlement to some praise. And when they don't get it, their reaction is to kind of go on the defensive and start attacking the people that are criticizing them. I want filmmakers to succeed. And that's independent. I'm a big independent enthusiast, mainly because of, and people will tell you, the technology today is allowing independent filmmakers to do things that only Hollywood could do before. And so, but I also think that they have to level up with their storytelling as well to kind of justify that. But I think that it's not something where I'm going like, oh, I want the independents to take over and destroy Hollywood. I want to see Hollywood do well as well. I think that there can be good movies across the board. But I think we've become so wrapped up in our egos that everything, that doesn't quite go our way, instead of using that as information to kind of reassess and go, okay, what do I do? Where do I go from here? We kind of double down and go like, well, if you don't like that, I'm just going to do it again, but even more. And so nobody's listening to each other. Nobody's excited anymore because everything feels like it's going to be a fight. And, I admit that I feel it myself, after so many franchises have been what feels like deliberately stepped on by the people who have been given charge over them, even though they're not the people that created it. When I hear about the new Alien movie coming out, I mean, I like that director. I really loved what he did with Evil Dead. But at the same time, I'm hearing about the series and how there's going to be like brain swapping and all this stuff that doesn't feel like Alien to me. And I feel like it feels like
it might not be for you.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And that's what I realized. Like, there's a lot of material, there's a lot of films, a lot of things out there. I was watching the reboot of Quantum Leap, and I got 20 minutes in, and I thought, you know what, this is really well made, but it's not for me. I'm no longer the audience for this. And what surprised me recently was Prey, the Predator prequel, and I went in. I didn't read anything about it, and I just went in. And my friend came over. We had a couple of beers, and we watched it. And I didn't put the weight of expectation on it. And do you know what? It was a great movie. Was it something that I'm going to revisit many times, like the original Predator? Of course not. I'm not going to do it, right? But it entertained me. It added some stuff for me that I really enjoyed. And I think that's good enough, and I've kind of come to realize that that's just how it's going to be. The next film I'm looking forward to is Avatar, Way of the Water. And I've haven't read anything about it either, because I just want to go in without any expectations, and be surprised.
Well, I think that's, one of the things about it, a film, I can accept if a film is not for you, and there's a lot of that for sure. I think that there's one of the things that's causing the hostility or the bad will is that there's a lot of bait and switch, where they say this is going to be for you, and then when you don't like it, then they go, well, it's not for you, and then they kind of attack the fans for it. And I again, it's not, I'm not saying I have any really, it's not something that I care about so much, but it is why I think that a lot of people just universally aren't gravitating towards the newer movies like they would towards RoboCop or Starship Troopers is another one. I'm a fan of that movie. I'm a fan of the original book. And people went like, oh, that's not really Heimlein's book. I'm like, no, it's not, but it did give us something that we all could be entertained by. And it's, like Aliens, infinitely quotable. Everyone's got their favorite scene that they'll talk about it, like you said, sitting down at a bar.
We interviewed Verhoeven for,
what's that?
We interviewed Paul Verhoeven for In Search of Tomorrow.
Oh,
and
nice.
He's everything you expect. And, we'll definitely, when we get around to doing 90s sci-fi, which should be around 2024, we'll definitely have him talking about Starship Troopers. But there's something that we haven't touched on, which is there's a lot of films that dropped in the 80s that weren't instant classics. So but the one that comes to my mind is The Thing. So The Thing, for me, is another perfect movie. I went to see it in London about a month and a half ago, just at the cinema, because I'd never seen it at the cinema. And it was amazing. And I went home and I watched the 2011 Thing, which isn't a terrible movie, but you can't compare it to the original, even though it's kind of prequel. It's a bit weird. But The Thing bombed when it was released, and it's sort of, it's only now that it's revered as this amazing classic. And so I wonder if people were I wonder if the people who were around then were going, oh, it's not The Thing from another world. It's not, I wish movies were like.
Well, I was around when that movie came out, and I'll tell you what they were saying. They were all talking about E.T.
Yeah,
that's really what made The Thing suffer. And it's funny because there was it was Alan Quatermain, because I was born in England, actually, so I could come from England at a very young age, and my dad was always watching stuff from the BBC that would come across on PBS, and there was what was that movie? It was like an older movie. I think it was a Quatermass experiment.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, where they found the buried aliens, and I remember being riveted by this movie, and my mom going, "Come on, shut that off." I'm like, "I'm watching it." Like, no, we're going to watch E.T., you know, which was the feel good movie, and I loved E.T. But to this day, you know, the more mysterious things like that, and The Thing, which kind of relates to it, it's almost a similar movie. You know, it speaks to us a little more on that primal, primitive level. And I think the reason that the sequel or the prequel didn't work out wasn't just because of Studio 80i's wonderful practical effects being painted over digitally. You know, I think on its own, that wasn't what ruined the movie so much. And like you said, it was fine, but that was it. It was very paint by numbers story beats. Like, here's the guy you're supposed to not like because he was rude to the woman when she was making a good point. You know, it's like,
it's so interesting you say that, because I watched a comparison of the Thing and the 2011 Thing, and it mentioned that point, and it went into detail. You can search it for it on YouTube, and it was so good. And you just got to credit John Carpenter. You know, and what's sad is the guy that, I forget his name, the guy that directed the 2011 The Thing.
Yeah.
Right. He had so much studio interference.
Yes.
Yeah. And he couldn't make the movie he wanted, but he hasn't directed since. And I think that's so sad, because when you start to look into it, there was a lot of great things, like the practical effects that they didn't show.
Mm-hmm.
What we did see was amazing. Right.
Yeah.
And in the kind of the stuff that's appeared online, there was a lot of, I think it was so much good intentions, and then they just wanted to rush it out like just any other product. And, you know, what do you do?
Well, you know, this again is why I'm so excited about the independent movement. And by the way, if I didn't say hi in the chat to D. Bud Martin before, hi, welcome to the chat. I feel like I didn't. I always try and acknowledge everyone in the chat. We're big on that here. But, you know, not too long ago, there was a project that I believe Fox did where they funded several Alien fan films, where you had to pitch it. I'm sure you're familiar with this. And they brought in, I think one of them had Bill Paxton's son in it. And I would say that they were okay to fairly good, you know, but just these days, like I said, with the modern technology, modern cameras, that you don't have to pay for film now. I'm using for my own stuff. I mean, my first, I'll tell you this, my first movie, The Quantum Terror, started out conceptualized as an Alien fan film. It was just,
where can I see it? We should swap links.
Oh, absolutely. It's on if you're in France, you'll be able to watch it on Filmzy, which is a video on demand streaming platform. It's also on Tubi and Amazon Prime.
Oh, it's on Tubi. Okay, cool.
It started out as an Alien fan film, and just me saying to myself, wait a minute, I don't want to do something that I can't make money on, that I can't own. If I'm going to put in all this work, but I built sets, because originally, before YouTube was a thing and fan films were a thing, even after seeing Alien 3, I was very disappointed in it, but I had seen a bunch of behind the scenes about the miniatures and the sets. And in my neighborhood, there were underground wash tunnels that kind of looked like that. And I realized I could paint the interiors of like large poster tubes to look like miniatures, and I could make hives out of hot glue. And I had a friend who had a camcorder, and we were going to make, which essentially was going to be, before found footage was a thing, was going to be an alien found footage film where we were going to pretend to be kids lost in the tunnel and coming across an alien. But the friends bailed out, and years later, I moved into a neighborhood that had another wash tunnel, and it all flooded back to me, no pun intended, that I could do this. And I eventually went, well, I love Aliens, but I want to make my own creatures. I want to make my own sets, and I want to make money on it. So I created the Quantum Terror. But it originally, if you see the beats of the Quantum Terror, it's got the same beats as Alien, or a little bit of The Shining as well. It's kind of the Alien meets The Shining on a very low budget. But, you know, just seeing people, fans or anybody who like before couldn't get studio backing or couldn't live in Hollywood, can now pick up a camera and start to take all of those things that have kind of manifest in their imagination because of these movies that came before, like The Thing and Alien and The Shining, and because of YouTubers. You know, I'm sure you're familiar with like Rob Ager and The Critical Drinker, and there's fans like Louis Nostromo. I'm sure you've talked to him.
We know Louis part of our advisor circle. Yeah, we know all of them. No, Rob. But you're exactly right. I think it's such an exciting time because there are no barriers. There was no barrier to entry to me. You know, I started doing our first documentary was In Search of the Last Action Heroes.
That's on Tubi, isn't it?
That's on Tubi, and
I love that. I did see that one, and that is excellent. That is an excellent
documentary. Thank you. Right. So I partnered with Oliver Harper, who was a YouTuber, Oliver Harper's Retrospectives. And we got the money via crowdfunding, and that kicked off like my business. And the next project we did was In Search of Darkness, which is done fantastically well. And so I love that. I love that it's a meritocracy. In fact, what you guys are doing right now with this live stream, that's what we're all about. Like, I think it's amazing, you know, like to revisit this, to talk about it, to have the conversations you're having with your friends now eventually manifest in your next movie, you know, through kind of, you know, filtration and all of that kind of stuff. I think it's what we've been able to do. It's changed my life. It's changed the life of my team. And I'm really grateful we get to sort of nerd out about this stuff and learn and try stuff. And, you know, Chris Stuckman, he's doing his first feature film, Shelby Oaks. And we were the crowdfunding company that raised the money for it. We raised 1.4 million in 25 days. Yeah. And, you know, again, like the next generation of independent filmmakers will come through YouTube, many of them.
Before we go on, by the way, Keely Chow is in the chat, and hi everybody, good morning, thank you. And Keith is here. Keith is one of the hosts, and Keith, I don't know if you've been listening along, but Robin Block here is the producer, one of the producers on Aliens Expanded, which is a fan documentary I'm very excited about. I just want to say too, yeah, absolutely. One of the things that why I wanted to get into live streaming was to connect more with my potential audience. And Gary and Keith, who started this show, invited me to do the Tuesdays on here. But
best decision of our lives.
Oh, thank you, Keith. You're too kind. My second project, which is Escape from Planet Omega 12, was actually, again, reactionary to Prometheus, because there was so much in Prometheus that kind of contradicted what I already had in my head about what the alien universe would be. And although this new movie I'm working on, which is animated, and by the way, again, using open source programs like Blender, AI-driven motion tracking, VTube technology, all these technologies that you can get for free are very cheap to tell your story. It may not be in the way that you envision you'd do it if you were in Hollywood, but you know, I was saying I envision a time in the near future where somebody, say, in the middle of I don't know, you know, in the middle of Africa, or maybe someone in the Catskills who is a quadriplegic who could never even pick up a camera soon, will be able to take what's in their head using technology and realize it. And it may not be Hollywood level, but they can get it out there to an audience and express themselves. But in order to do that, you need to, you know, like we're doing here, you want to connect with your audience. You want to hear what people are saying. You want to hear what resonates for people and what doesn't. And, you know, it's vitally important to me to respect that. And I'm not saying, you should just do whatever the audience tells you they want you to do, because then at that point you're not really being expressive. You're just responding to stuff, and that there's a pitfall in that. But what you are doing is you're making sure that you are able to communicate those ideas to the audience in a way that will resonate with them and be timeless. And I think that, again, I'm not saying this because I hate Hollywood. I don't want Hollywood to fail. I just wish Hollywood would get out of their bubble a little bit and kind of get down into the, because people like John Carpenter and Ridley Scott, they were down in it. They were doing this stuff because they loved it like we love it. And as the generations change and the technology changes, there are new ways of doing that and new opportunities. And rather than reject that, I want to embrace it.
Let me at least just say this, because this plays a lot to what Gary and I started all of this stuff for, especially me, which is this. What do you find when looking at how how Hollywood has done when taking on the areas of the fantastic? First of all, being very dismissive of these types of films, to a growing understanding that it could be used differently by the time you get to 2001, to how it is now, which is one of the driving forces of technology for Hollywood. A lot of the technology that has been used to make a lot of even current television shows started out being stuff for films of the fantastic. It is vitally really important to understand how that goes. You have a fan base that you've tapped into over the last 60 years. And some people choose to make or adapt a lot of this stuff based on who they are, what they've done, and their experience. And a certain other percentage, are fans who have the opportunity to make something. So that's the reason why you can have someone like Peter Jackson stand out. That's the reason.
Keith,
that's the reason why. Oh, go ahead.
You mentioned Peter Jackson, but my favorite movie he's ever done is Bad Taste.
Oh yeah, but he's a fan.
No different to us when he was making that. He took him 4 years to make it.
But he's a fan, and you can tell he's a fan. Richard Donner is another good example. Everybody has.
We nearly got Richard Donner.
The thing is that it really does depend on the project. Everybody has that one thing that they do, that they are such a big fan of, and that in your mind you don't want to do anything to sully that or to make that experience anything outside of what you had experienced. And it was a way of transferring that feeling to a whole new audience. Okay,
Keith, I could listen to you talk genius stuff like this for hours. Right. And it's been a pleasure to be invited onto this at such short notice. I love the internet. I love all this stuff. Thanks so much for having me on. I have to leave now.
Oh, okay.
But I'm going to carry on watching you when I've had my dinner. But Christopher, lovely to meet you. Thanks so much. John, hopefully you've sent me your email address. I'll send you guys a bunch of codes. Stay in touch.
Thank you.
And keep doing what you're doing. And I'm learning listening to you guys. So thank you.
Well, we've only got 15 minutes left to this show. We wrap up at that time, but I want to thank you for joining us. It's such an impromptu way, and John, thank you for hopping on that and getting him on the show. I thought we were going to have to arrange it later, but we really appreciate you being on, and I'm really looking forward to watching Expanded.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and it's really like just listening to you. It's for you. Like if you don't love it, we've done something wrong. So, and thanks for mentioning us anyway and tagging us and all that kind of stuff. We love it. So, enjoy the rest of the show, guys. Take care.
You too. Thank you so much, Robin.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Happy New Year.
I think what I was getting to was that eventually you come into something like the YouTube channel Dust, which in my opinion is really what a lot of this has been building to. These are not in every case. These are not always Hollywood professionals, but these are people that are very passionate. And yeah, a majority of them are people that are film people who have this passion for telling a particular type of story. And when you have a channel like Dust show up, and again, I know I have been pressing this, but it is very important that if you believe in that kind of thing, to not only support filmmakers like Christopher, but to also support the kinds of people that make the kinds of entertainment and films that we see on Dust. Because that is doing exactly that. It's using all of the technology that has been constructed, that has been created over the decades, that has now become cheaper to use, way cheaper to use. And this gets down to what something that George Lucas and had talked about back at the beginning, well, mid to late 90s. And that was that he had said that eventually it was going to get down to not being about your visual effects, not being about how much money that you spend on making certain parts of the fantastic credible. It's going to come down to your stories. It's going to come down to your writing. And if you don't have good writing, that's really what is going to sully everything. It'll be the biggest difference between those who are successful and those who aren't. And James Cameron agreed. The both of them were having this big discussion. They came out with this whole long speech about how the future of the entertainment industry was really going to be decided pretty much by people with laptops.
Yeah.
And it has for the most part.
Well, this is something that I think is inevitable. First of all, we do owe mainly George Lucas, but also James Cameron. They're two people who are at the forefront of pushing the technology. George Lucas funded this stuff, and as far as Pixar wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for George Lucas. A lot of CGI effects, a lot of and of course we have like Steve Jobs and Apple and that sort of thing. They were all part of it, but now it comes down to this, which is now I've been hearing a lot of people lately saying that all this convenience and ease of this technology is going to kill creativity. The human spirit, the human creative spirit, is never going to stop being creative. It is what we do. We are compelled to do it. The technology will automate a lot of the process for it. And it will also, its availability will also cause us to look for ways around it, because we won't always want to use it, but we may use it to facilitate. Like I said, I'm a big practical effects enthusiast, and I'm using technology to facilitate that. Mm-hmm. But what it comes down to is, with every new technology, there's resistance, and some of it is rightful. We shouldn't just embrace any new technology without understanding, what it can do that's good for us, and how it can also be detrimental. That's just everything in life. You cannot pursue something without a degree of risk and sacrifice. What I'm seeing these days is a lot of people who are they're seeing this new stuff, and they're seeing people kind of take it and run with it. And they get kind of, I call it, well, I mean, we do it to ourselves as well. We have all of this technology at our disposal, and we look at it all, and we start coming up with excuses why we can't use it or we shouldn't use it. And then we try and project that onto other people. This isn't the way it's done, or we've always done it this way. We got a system here. Let's not start, breaking away and doing this or that. It's this, what I call, and I'm not saying this to be condescending or insulting to anybody. As a matter of fact, I've heard Joe Rogan say this, but it's, we have to be careful not to listen to our inner bitch that starts making excuses why we shouldn't do something or can't do something. The fact is that we have been presented with an amazing opportunity. Most of this technology is open source or very cheap to use, or you can get like lower levels for less, and pay more money, but it's still at our fingertips, and it is freeing us up. And like I said, not just us fans, but like I said, in the future, there are going to be people who are like in impoverished nations or with severe handicaps or whatever, that are going to be able to take this technology and tell their story. And whether it's good or not, that'll be, again, for posterity to decide. But, the fact is that Hollywood has to contend with this now. And there'll be a lot of gnashing of teeth and stomping of feet and crying over it. And not every point made against it will be invalid either. But there's so much opportunity. We are so blessed to have that. And just having Robin coming on here, a guy who's just taken these opportunities to tell the story of not only his passion, but the fact that he's passionate for the fan community. And he wants to give them all the opportunity, this platform, to have the discussions, to have the debates, to open up the conversation in ways that will be enlightening to future storytellers to come. And that is there's no other point in human history that comes close to it, but at the same time, every point in human history has some equivalent, some new revelations, some new genius that comes along. And you know what? It comes. I love the movie Ratatouille, because the whole movie, the theme of it is there's this argument. Was it Rousseau's restaurant? All the other restaurants, all the other cooks and food critics hated him because he wrote a book called Anyone Can Cook. And they were like, what? Anyone can cook? That's preposterous. Not everyone can cook. Rousseau is a genius, and and they started attacking him, and they took stars off of his restaurant, and they, did all these things to discredit him. And at the end, it's a cartoon, but there's a rat. That's the whole thing, is this rat who's passionate for cooking. And he cooks this meal, this ratatouille meal, that's so great that the critic eats it, and he is taken back, like we were talking about with Robin, taken back to his childhood, to when his mother would cook for him and what that meant to him. And it was more than just food. It was a moment in time for him. It was meaning, which is what art is about, is creating meaning. And his conclusion from that, I thought, was just a genius statement for the movie, which was, no, not everyone can cook, but a great cook can come from anywhere. And we're at a point in time in history where we have such opportunities that so many people come up with so many excuses why we can't use them, or we shouldn't use them, or I'm not good enough. That's your inner bitch. And you have to overcome that. I love the dragon analogy. Your inner bitch is like a dragon. It's sleeping in a cave. Eventually that dragon's going to wake up, and it's going to burn down your village if you don't do something about it. But if you go and meet that dragon, inner bitch the dragon, and on its own ground, and confront it and slay it by doing the things that you can do, you can claim the gold that it's hoarded, which was yours all along. So that's, and that's all I'm going to say about that. Well, I was hoping I could get to that point 5 minutes later so we could wrap up the show on time. Maybe we'll want to open it up to some comments or something like that. But yeah, let quote me on that. You got to go and slay inner bitch the dragon in its cave.
Well, I mean, I think that the entertainment industry, Hollywood, has changed. And over the last 10 to 15 years, it has really become something more of an extension of big business. Mm-hmm. Because of that is, in certain areas, retarded development. Okay. you have a lot of executives that get they get stars in their eyes. They begin to believe that they can actually do things that, if all you've known have been numbers or documents, there's this thing that happens where you get people thinking that they can do more than what they can actually do.
Well,
Just because you hang out with musicians does not make you a musician, let alone of a level that of someone who is the best to have ever been. You can't do that, and that's where we are right now.
Well, essentially what it is they see what other people have built. They've seen the credibility and the notoriety that those creations have gained the people who made them. And they feel like if they can just attach themselves to those names and take over what happens to them next, that they can steal the valor.
And that's some of it. But others, it was something that I recently saw, because it's a movie that comes out every holiday season that people really, really like. And that is Richard Donner's movie Scrooge. And if you remember the scene where the lead character is talking to his boss, and notice at the beginning, he has a definite idea how he wants this a Christmas, the Christmas Carol told. But by the time he's done talking to his boss has altered parts of it. That's really the way that Hollywood has always been. The difference now is that the two people that are talking are people that have no real background, seriously, in making films. They really do not understand it. They understand the bits and the talking part. So they think it's easy to be able to come up with stuff. That has been the problem that you have seen, whether you're talking about Paramount, whether you're talking what Warner Brothers has been through over the last 15 years under Kevin Tsujihara and everything that came after, and with Disney under Bob Iger and the idea of allowing creatives to run everything, which in and of itself is kind of madness. I mean, from a creative bent, that's great, but creatives aren't business people. Well, and vice versa. There is a reason why you do your best when you are functioning exactly where you are best.
Well, it's a matter of trusting that the market will sort itself out. If you let people, the more you try and control a market, the more you hamstring it, and the worse things become. And it may be all right for the people at the top at the time, but really you're choking out all the your arteries that have to function in all the different parts of the body. So, and this is something that Frank Zappa said. He said it used to be you get like a music exec chomping on a cigar and come up to you and go, I don't get it, but the kids like it, so do what you need to do.
Yes.
Now the execs are going, they want to have a say in everything that's going on.
Yeah, I think he was trying to say that a lot of the music execs that are our age were the biggest gatekeepers against what we were trying to do in the 60s. That was the full version of that. He was saying that a lot of these older guys had reached a point where, they're willing to try anything.
Yeah.
Versus people that were around their same age were the biggest obstacles to trying anything. And that was correct. I agree with him. Way too many people are trying to make their bones. They're trying to make their way up. They're trying to become the king of the hill. You can't always do that and be correct about every single little thing, let alone be good at every single thing. The best people are the people that understand that they don't know everything, but know who is really good at something, and you give them the ability to help you create.
Yeah.
That's the secret.
Yeah, and with that, we should wrap up the show because it is noon Central time here. But that is a very good place to end, Keith. I think, ultimately, I think the thing is that you have to be an artist first and a businessman second. And that seems counterintuitive to the business people. But, ultimately, it's show business, and people always say people forget about the business. But yes, the business people also forget about the show.
Mhm.
So with that, I do hope I am rooting for Alien. I'm not, Alien Romulus, the new movie that's supposedly in the works. If it's good, then I'll be very happy. But if it's not, I'm indifferent at this point. Like John says, there's only 2 Alien movies, Alien and Aliens. So with that, I want to thank everyone in the chat. We got Cohen's Ghost again, Josh Becker, Scribe Light, D-Bud Martin, Penny, Joe's Atmosphere, Crumpus Jesus. Thank you, come again. Jeebus, I should say. I always say Jesus. Sorry. Sean Estep and let's see, Cameron Vale, Ridge Top. Thank you for coming, Ridge Top. I appreciate you. Go check out Aliens versus Predator Galaxy. It's a fantastic website. Boosh McFadden, Dragon Ruse, Dueling Dragon Adventures, Robin Block, who came on the show from Aliens Expanded. That was super exciting. And thanks, John, for bringing him in again. That was a stroke of genius on your part. Kings Porcal, War Monkey, Zax, and Keely Cha. And thank you, Keith, Martin, of course, and Das Wolfen. What a great show. Would definitely have to keep talking about the Aliens franchise because Aliens Expanded, I can't wait to see that. So, so for everyone, happy Tuesday and a happy new year. If I don't show up on any of the other live streams throughout the week, I hope 2023 is going to be awesome for everyone. So thank you. And Martin, go ahead and take us out.
Hey guys, thanks for watching Pop Culture Minefield. If you've enjoyed the show, please make sure to like, subscribe, and don't forget to click the bell icon for updates on our shows and channel. Also, please leave a comment, and we'd like to know what you thought of the episode, as well as letting us know if there's something you'd like us to cover in a future episode. Don't forget that you can become a member of Pop Culture Minefield now. Make sure to visit our membership page and merch store at popcultureminefield.com. You can always find Pop Culture Minefield on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitch.